So, do I want a halo or do I want an evil mustache I can twirl with giant horns coming out of my head? These are the questions you need to ask yourself before you play Fable, a game that released in 2004, 21 years ago. I still remember my first encounter with it. I was over at my buddy Zach's house. There's a couple of us. We went over for a game night and we are playing a bunch of like Halo 2 kind of competitive games. We had two different TVs hooked up and we were playing games all night. And it's like 1 in the morning. And we always had to be at Zach's house like early in the morning. His parents were just always like, if your friends stay over, they got to be gone by like 8. And we always respected that. But that meant often we're up until like 2, 3 in the morning, waking up at 7:30, sleep deprived, and driving home or having our parents or someone pick us up. So, anyways, it's pretty late, and I still remember I'm like, all right, I gotta pick a couch because his basement was a gaming hangout. He had a couple couches, some chairs. It was a big finished basement. One of the best draws to it was he had at the time it must have been like a 50-inch flat screen plasma TV, which 2004 was still very rare. And it was the first TV I remember where I was like, what is this connection? What's this cord? And it's like HDMI. So I'm trying to nab a couch so I don't have to sleep on the floor. And one of my friends, Billy, picks up a game and he's like, what is this? And the game is Fable. So he's asking about it. My one friend, Mike, who owned the copy, and a couple other friends are telling him about how cool it is. And it's like this game with a lot of these cool choices and all that. So Billy starts to put the game in to play it, and everyone quickly, ironically, is like, "No, no, don't play it, don't play it, don't play it." They're trying to explain to him like, if you start playing it, you're gonna get hooked and you're gonna be up all night and get no sleep. And Billy, being stubborn, was just like, I'm just gonna try it out. I'm just gonna play it for like 30 minutes, an hour, try it out before it goes to sleep. And sure enough, I go to bed. I wake up at like 7 a.m. and Billy's still playing and questing in Fable. And I still remember Mike because this must have been, it was probably around, I'm pretty sure this was during Christmas break. So it was probably late December 2004. Mike kind of begrudgingly was just like, all right, you can borrow it because Billy wanted to keep playing it and take it home. But Mike had beat it and stuff by that point. So he let Billy take it home and I think play it for the next week or two. That's where I want to talk about Fable some more for this EXP Monthly for December. Fable is one of those games that it just does so much right when it comes to gameplay, story, the style, the art. And when you play a game like that at the right time in your life, and for me and my friends, like in our, teens, high school years, I think probably if you're playing this in like your early 20s as well, it just something about that game just latched into you. And plus it being new and in the time hooked a lot of us, and a lot of people really appreciated and enjoyed that first Fable game. And one thing I want to bring up is there's not a lot that Fable did that was even necessarily unique. I think the magic of Fable was how it brought all those elements together and the quality it did it at and how it packaged it all together. Because again, a lot of the mechanics, the alignment system, the reputation, none of it was necessarily unique on its own, but together it was something special. And again, we're talking about 2004, 5 years ago in 1999, a 3D adventure game. And again, me and my friends, that reference point was not that far away, looked nothing like Fable. And Fable wasn't going for this like realistic style that some games were doing even at the time. It definitely had an art direction, but it looked great, especially for that era. And the voice acting was phenomenal because, again, not going back 5, 6, 7 years before this, me and my friends all still remember some of those like very bad voice acted games where oftentimes you had developers voice acting like in games themselves. And it's like we have professional voice acting. We had a game that had this sense of style and kind of British humor. Exposed to all that also was like part of the Fable magic. So I think Fable ended up just being very immersive, and one of the keystones I think to that immersion above all else, above like the voice acting, the art, the story, the narrative, was the game's alignment and reputation system. Again, nothing Fable invented, but this was a game where, depending on what alignment you went, it drastically changed how your character looked. It changed how NPCs reacted to you. There were moments in the game, particularly a big one at the end, but even throughout the game, where you could make choices to be kind of good or evil, and that multiple times involved like killing characters where they're just gone from the story and changing kind of how the story played out. And again, all that, how it was packaged together and presented, was so cool and so of its own thing at the time. And very few games, if any, I think really had done what Fable had done before it became a game. Because I'm thinking of earlier great games with great stories and stuff, such as like the Baldur's Gate games or Final Fantasy VI or Final Fantasy VII, games like I love and adore. But like these games that have voice acting, and games of course don't necessarily need this, but when you're talking about immersion, that's why we want like better graphics or an art style that is representative of the tone, or again, voice acting, or unique controls in how they play into the game. Like all that starts to add more and more immersion, and for a lot of us, that's what can make games go from good to great. Another thing I think Fable does extremely well, which I think any game that is an adventure game should follow suit, is if you're making a game that is linear, take some notes from Fable, because Fable is a pretty linear game when you kind of zoom out. Well, even when you're playing it, you're always kind of going from point to point. You revisit areas, but for the most part, you're kind of unlocking like the next places to go on the map. But it definitely feels open world, and you do not feel as you're being railroaded. And a lot of that is due to the mechanics and I think the world building, where you will go to like towns. I think one of the biggest examples of this is you can, rob vendors. You can go around just helping people in side quests. You can kill a vendor of a shop and then buy the shop, and you can buy like houses in each town. You can get married, and you can have wives or husbands in every town you want. So it gives you like reason to kind of go back to towns, even though items don't necessarily upgrade. Like the next time you get to town, it just usually has just better versions of like armor and weapons. But you'll go back to previous locations to get money, or sometimes do some side quest, or sometimes it's just fun to see. You go back to one of the early towns now that you have all this reputation, and maybe you look super evil, just to see how like characters react to you as you go back. And I, again, think it is a great example of, if you kind of have a linear adventure game, take some notes on how Fable gives you quests, presents side opportunities, and really how the world kind of reacts to you, where it's refreshing to go back to areas you've been before, even if there's not really a lot of new content there, to just see the difference in the world and the difference in how the NPCs in the game start to react to you differently because of choices you made and your alignment and your reputation, and if they think you're handsome or scary. So when it comes to Fable, I have played and beat the game multiple times. I originally would have played and beat it on the OG Xbox. My brother ended up getting an Xbox very late into its life cycle, though we had a couple of games for it, Fable being one of them. Though the Xbox red ringed like 2 months into having it, so he ended up just returning it. So during that time, I had played and beat Fable, and then Lost Chapters came out, and I remember I wanted to build a gaming PC and play Lost Chapters because they had new content. Unfortunately, I didn't have the money to build a gaming PC at the time, but I ended up playing Fable again when the Anniversary Collection came out, and I've definitely beat Fable. I would probably estimate 4 times. I beat it both going very evil, going very good, and kind of in between. The last time, just kind of going through my Steam history, I must have beat it was 2017. So it has been like 8 years since I've last played this game. Though Fable is one of those games, I remember all the big story beats, I remember all the set pieces, so this isn't one of those games I'm going back and playing that it's almost like experiencing a lot of it for the first time. A lot of it stuck with me, and I think that is a mark of a great game. And I do think one of the lasting impacts with Fable is I still remember that first playthrough is Fable is one of those games where you play it and it feels like a journey. So I do think one of the more unique things it did, I again don't know if it's like the first game to necessarily do this, but in most RPGs, you're going on an adventure, and this is over the course of like in the narrative, like maybe a few days to a couple months, maybe a year. Fable, you're essentially playing your entire hero's life. You start playing your hero as a kid. It has a couple time jumps, which, yeah, other games have. But once you become essentially like a young adult, like 16, 18, like in the time of the game, as you start to play through the story, like every couple quests, your character's aging, and your character can like age faster or slower depending on how long you take to go through the game. I don't know Fable specifically if it's like every day's a year or if it goes by like quest, but your character does get older and like they have like an age if you look in your stats. So by the time you beat the game, I remember my first playthrough, by the time I beat the game, my character was like super old. I want to say they were like in their 60s. I remember they had like white hair, they're all wrinkly, and I've beat the game other times before I got like that old. So I know it's not like super set. It's not like every time you beat the game you're like old. But after you beat the game and that first time, it's like feel like I went through a hero's journey or maybe a villain's journey. But not many games you felt like you lived your character's life, and that was one of the things that has always stuck out with me. It's like I feel like I lived a life playing through this adventure game, this like adventure RPG. So I'm excited to get back to get back to Fable, play it again after nearly a decade now. It does not seem like it's been that long, but according to my Steam, it has. And to see if that feeling kind of holds up when it comes to gameplay and narrative, kind of get my thoughts down. And yeah, I hope some of you play it with me. Again, this is Filbert with EXP Monthly. It is a book club, but for video games. Each month we play a game. December 2025, we are playing Fable. Hope you join the Discord, get in the discussion, play along, and see you in the podcast at the end of the month. I'll catch you next time.
Chicken chaser, then.
Well then, chicken chaser.
Chicken chaser. Chicken chaser?